My name is Julia Smith. I'm 33, and I can tell you the dates of every bill my family forgets until the last possible second. I can also tell you the exact sound my phone makes when a text becomes a verdict, a single chime that turns your ribs into glass. It came 3 weeks before Christmas, 5:17 p.m., while I was stirring chili and my 13-year-old son, Leo, counted Lego bricks on the kitchen island like they were currency. Stay away this Christmas. The family's had enough of you. From Dad. No greeting, no context. Periods sharp enough to draw blood. A beat later, a notification from the family group chat. Jessica, my sister, golden since birth, reacted with a bouncing, laughing emoji. I stared at the little yellow cartoon face and felt something in my chest go very still, like a lake, right before it freezes over. Everything okay? Leo asked, not looking up. Fine, I lied. I touched the screen with a thumb that suddenly didn't feel like part of my body and typed, "Then I'll stop touching the bills." I hit send, and the kitchen went quiet in that heavy way you can't explain to a child. A pot bubbled. The heater shuddered. Outside, December pressed its face to the windows, fogging the glass with its slow, patient breath. They didn't respond. Not right away. Maybe they thought I was bluffing. The people who tell themselves they know you always assume you are exactly who they need you to be. I set my phone down and ladled chili into bowls. Leo told me about a science video on building tiny bridges out of pasta. He wanted to try one after homework. I nodded and kept seeing that text, each word laid out like a line of tape across a doorway. Stay away. The family's had enough of you. Enough of what? Enough of the Venmo transfers slipping out of my account at 2:13 a.m. because the auto pay didn't go through? Enough of Jessica's just until Friday loans that turned into, can you cover the late fee? Enough of Dad's truck insurance I set up in my name after he couldn't find the login, then forgot to switch back? Enough of my quiet yes every time they offered me a chance to audition for love by paying for it? I washed dishes and dried my hands on a towel that had a winter cardinal printed on it. Then I took my phone to the couch and opened the bills folder. Yes, an actual folder on my screen, like I was unsnapping a small, loaded purse. Student loans. J. Davis. Auto payoff. Truck insurance. G. Smith. Remove card. Car insurance. J. A. Davis. Remove card. Utilities. Water. Power. Internet. Dad's house. Stop payments. Delete saved method. Streaming services I'd installed during the pandemic so they wouldn't feel isolated. Gone with 2 taps. Even the cousin in the guest room. Wi-Fi credentials reset. I pictured him blinking at a spinning wheel and almost felt bad, then remembered the time he said in front of everyone, "Julia doesn't mind. She likes this stuff," as if carrying people was my hobby. The group chat pulsed with idiot life. Memes, a photo of a crooked Christmas wreath, Jessica posting a TikTok of a girl doing a hip sway with the caption mood. Dad added a thumbs up. They were celebrating, and they still didn't know the lights under their roof would dim on the 30th, and the insurance cards would decline without the quiet ghost of my debit. My phone buzzed. Ethan. Hey, you okay? Your dad posted something weird. Of course he saw it. Ethan had a way of putting his ear to every door. My what? My ex-boyfriend, if you're asking for labels. The man who told me we can work it out, then backslid into Megan's messages at 2 a.m. for a month, calling it closure. He didn't miss me. He missed having a place to set his weight. I locked my screen and put the phone face down. My hands were steadier than I expected. Not anger, something else. A lever shifting, a panel sliding into place with a satisfying click. Here's what I hadn't told anyone, not even Mom, when she sat at my kitchen table and folded napkins to fill the silence of things we did not say. This was supposed to be the year I got it right. I'd found a silver Toyota Corolla, spotless, $11,200 in cash, title already printed with Jessica Davis across it like a crown. In the attic, a ridiculous giant red bow waited in a plastic bag I'd draped over a chair to keep the glitter off the holiday decorations. For Dad, a custom gold watch. Not flashy. Classic, heavy, engraved on the back. To the best dad. I spent an hour choosing the font, then more time convincing myself the engraving wasn't a lie but a wish. Maybe if I named him that, He'd try it on. I had hidden the gifts because I wanted Christmas morning to start a new pattern. I'd imagined handing Jessica the keys, Dad the velvet box. I'd imagined something unclenching in the room, a softening I'd chased like a star all my life. Instead, I opened the garage and watched the Toyota's hood reflect the dim light like water. I took photos, the bow draped over metal, the title with Jessica's name crisp and legible, the watch in its black box, the engraving catching light. Proof, not performance. Then I sent the photos to the group chat. No caption. And with that, the house changed temperature. The chat died like someone had cut a wire. The meme stream evaporated. No laughing emojis, no clapping hands, no Jessica's LOL chill. It was so quiet I heard the sound of my own breathing. A minute 5:12. I could feel them, miles away, staring at their screens, trying to orchestrate a response. I'd given them a mirror and a clock at once. The gifts were not a flex, they were an X-ray. Every rib of me, visible. Every unthanked yes, exposed. Mom, Leo said from the hallway, do you think I should use spaghetti or penny for the bridge? Spaghetti, I said, and my voice surprised me by sounding normal. Better tension. We built the bridge on the kitchen island while the night slipped down the windows like a curtain. Every so often, my phone lit up with a new scene status in the chat. Dad, scene. Jessica, scene. Aunt Linda, scene. Uncle Mark, scene. Silence like snow. At 8:04 p.m., the first crack. Aunt Linda, Julia, is this real? 8:05, Uncle Mark. You bought them a car? 8:06. Cousin Nina sent the face with the exploding head, and then, wait, what is going on? I didn't answer. Not yet. I was waiting for the two whose names mattered. I'd learned the hard way that responding before people showed you their truth was a guarantee you'd walk straight into their script. At 8:08, Mom, I'm so sorry. Just that. 3 words that made the chili sit like a stone. Mom, the peacemaker, the soft-spoken fixer, the woman who apologized for storms because she felt like weather was somehow her responsibility. Her text made something in me ache and then settle. At 8:12, the tone shifted, chat threading itself into fury. Aunt Linda again, but harder. Why did Greg send that? Why is Jessica laughing? Julia has been paying your bills for years. The aunts circled. The uncles who had stayed out of it found their voices. A cousin sent a long paragraph about the time I paid for my own birthday dinner, while Dad bragged later about raising a responsible daughter. At 8:19, Jessica finally entered, a flurry of typing dots like white flags blinking. This is out of context. Julia's being dramatic. She always does this. A laughing emoji doesn't mean anything. At 8:21, Dad. We never asked for those gifts. She does things for attention. Family drama doesn't need to be public. There it was, the thesis of his life. Not don't hurt people, but don't let anyone know. Not don't take, but don't get caught being seen taking. Can I test it? Leo asked, referring to the spaghetti bridge. Not yet, I said. We let glue cure, otherwise the weight makes it fold. It sounded wise, even to me. Let it cure. Don't rush into old reflexes, explaining, smoothing, folding yourself into a shape. Other people could put on a shelf. My whole life had been rushing in with metaphorical tape and a credit card. Tonight I let the structure hold, or fail, on the truth of what it was. At 8:32, my phone rang. Mom, I didn't answer. It rang again. I picked up. She didn't say hello. I could hear her breathing, the kitchen clock at her house ticking like it always had, steady as a metronome in the background. I'm coming over, she said, voice small but firm. Don't argue. I didn't. When she arrived, she was carrying a pie. Of course she was. The edges golden and imperfect. She set it on the counter like an offering and sat without taking off her coat. We watched the phone glow on the table between us, lighting the room in short, pulsing breaths. They'll try to spin it, she said finally, eyes on the screen. They'll say you misread. They'll ask you to delete. They'll promise to pay you back someday. They'll bring up the time you forgot a 14th birthday card as if that is the same as a year of rent. I know, I said, and I did. I knew the choreography. Denial, confusion, guilt, then an ask. Maybe a big ask if they were desperate enough, something that would tether me for another year. What they didn't know was that I'd already made 2 lists in my head. One was everything I'd done for them. The other was everything I would do for Leo with that same money. One list felt like sinking, the other felt like a door. At 9:04, the chat went quiet again. A silence with weight to it, like everyone was in a room where the air had thinned. I looked at Mom. She looked at me. For the first time in a long time, I was not bracing for impact. I was watching for clarity. I opened my camera roll and scrolled past the Toyota and the velvet watch box to a photo I'd taken without thinking the week before. Leo in a knit hat too big for him, grinning with his eyes squinted, framed by a line of plastic reindeer in a store window. I felt something shift. Not anger, not triumph. Direction. "Can we test it now?" Leo asked from the island, voice hopeful. "Yeah," I said, standing. "Let's see what it holds." He placed coins on the spaghetti bridge, one by one, small weights of copper and nickel. The arch trembled and then held. We laughed, the sound easy. The phone buzzed again and again, but for a moment we let it. The structure could wait. The glue was still curing. The truth wasn't going anywhere. When the laughter died down, I picked up my phone and typed a message, not to Dad, not to Jessica, but to the whole chat. Not an explanation, not a defense. I sent the list. Jessica's student loans, auto pay, 11 months. Dad's truck insurance, 8 months. Car insurance, Jessica, 14 months. Utilities, water/power/internet. Dad's house, 12 months. Medical co-pays, Jessica, 3 times. Groceries, 7 times. Streaming services, all. Line by line, date by date. A ledger of affection confused for obligation. I hit send. The dots stopped dancing. The thread froze. And in that quiet, for the first time all day, I felt something like winter sunlight on skin. Thin, but honest. I had pulled my hand off the switch, and the room was showing itself for what it was. The bridge held. The house exhaled. The chat stayed silent. I set the phone down and cut 2 slices of pie. "Test passed?" Mom asked softly. "Not yet," I said, and smiled without meaning to, but it will. The next morning, I woke to silence. No Merry Christmas messages, no memes, no apologies. Just gray winter light cutting through the blinds and the hum of the fridge. Leo was already up, sitting cross-legged on the couch with a controller in his hand. The TV flickered softly as he built something pixelated and perfect. He looked peaceful, untouched by the kind of hurt that creeps in through family text threads. I wanted to keep it that way. My phone buzzed at 7:42 a.m. "Jessica. Julia, please don't do this. It's all a misunderstanding." The laughing emoji wasn't about you. Then another one. Long, desperate, scattered with typos. Dad's message came out wrong. He was upset, but he didn't mean stay away. He felt unappreciated. "Please don't ruin Christmas over this." I read it twice, not because I was considering forgiveness, but because I was curious how far she'd twist herself to avoid saying the only thing that mattered. I was wrong. She never said it. 10 minutes later, Dad chimed in. "I think you've blown this out of proportion. Nobody owes anybody anything. Family drama doesn't need to be public." Of course, the family name mattered more than the truth. I stared at their words, feeling the old reflex, that familiar ache that made me want to explain, to calm, to fix, start to crawl up my throat. I swallowed it down. Instead, I scrolled back through the group chat. The silence from the others told its own story. Aunt Linda's last message, "Julia has been paying your bills for years," still sat there, unchallenged. No one dared to disagree now that the receipts were in plain sight. I took a breath, opened my photo folder, and stared at the images again. The Toyota with its red bow, the watch gleaming in its velvet box. Both had been symbols of hope, proof that love could be bought if I just gave enough. Now they were evidence. At 8:05, my cousin Nina sent me a private message. We all saw it. We just didn't realize how far it went. "I'm sorry we never said anything before." That one broke something small and silent inside me, because I'd always suspected they knew. Everyone in that family knew. They just looked away. I was the quiet workhorse, the responsible one, the dependable single mom who never asked for help. And now that they couldn't deny it, they didn't know what to do with the truth. Aunt Linda texted me next. "If you need me, I'm here. You've done enough for them, Julia. Time to take care of yourself for once." Her words felt like a hand on my shoulder. I hadn't realized how much I'd needed that. By 9 o'clock, I'd made coffee, cleaned the kitchen, and started printing the receipts. Actual paper copies, 12 pages long. A small ritual of finality. I stacked them neatly and slipped them into a folder labeled Family. The act felt both absurd and freeing, like documenting the aftermath of a storm you'd finally escaped. While the printer whirred, I checked my messages again. A new one from Ethan. Ethan, hey, your dad and sister are posting weird stuff. Are you okay? I almost laughed. There it was again. Concern disguised as curiosity. He didn't really care. He just wanted to peek at the chaos like it was a live show. Julia, I'm fine. Ethan, you sure? I could drop by if you want to talk. Julia, no need. He replied with a single thumbs up. I stared at the icon for a second. Funny how that same emoji had started all this. Mom showed up around 10. No warning. Same code as last night, but this time she brought muffins. She set them on the counter, took off her gloves, and sighed. They're losing it, she said. Your dad's trying to tell everyone you hacked his accounts. I almost spit out my coffee. Hacked? I was his account. I know, she said, rubbing her forehead, but he's panicking. The relatives aren't taking his side, and Jessica's crying to anyone who'll listen. She's always crying, I said quietly, but only when she's caught. Mom winced. You're not wrong. We sat in silence for a bit. Leo came downstairs, hair messy, holding his half-finished pasta bridge like a trophy. It held, he said proudly. I put all the quarters on it, and it didn't break. I smiled. I knew it would. He grinned and went back upstairs. Mom watched him go. He's lucky, she said. He got your patience. Or maybe he just doesn't have anyone taking it from him yet, I said. Mom didn't argue. Her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, sighed, and slid it over. Jessica, she said, you should see what she's saying before it gets worse. I hesitated, then read the messages. I didn't mean to laugh. I thought Dad's message was about something else. Julia's always so sensitive. I can't believe she'd embarrass us like this. She ruined Christmas for no reason. That was Jessica's apology. Not sorry for what she did, just sorry I wouldn't let it slide. Then another text appeared from Dad. Tell her I'm willing to talk if she wants to be reasonable. Reasonable. That word used to be my leash. I put the phone down. Mom, you don't have to mediate this. It's between them and their reflection. I know, she said, softly but firmly. But you also know how your father gets when he feels cornered. I do, I said, but he's the one who built the walls. She looked at me for a long time, the kind of look that said she wanted to argue but knew I was right. Then she said, they're going to come here, Julia. I know. They'll play sorry, she warned. They'll cry, bring gifts, try to look humble. Don't let them make you the villain. I smiled faintly. I'm not the villain, Mom. I'm just not the funding department anymore. For the first time in years, she laughed. A real small laugh. By noon, I was at my desk, drafting a classified listing for the Toyota. I took a deep breath before writing the description. 2016 Corolla, excellent condition, one owner, 11th edition, $200. Title in hand. I didn't mention that the owner wasn't me, not emotionally anyway. When I finished, I turned to the watch. The velvet box sat under the lamp, the engraving catching the light. To the best dad. The irony burned and then dulled into something simpler. Relief. I took another picture, this time with a plain background, ready to send to a local appraiser. As I hit save, a new message popped up. From Nina again. Aunt Linda's furious. She's telling everyone what happened. She said she remembers the Thanksgiving when Jessica mocked your pie and your dad laughed. She said she should have said something back then. I typed back. She didn't have to. She's saying it now. The truth was finally out, and it wasn't coming from me anymore. For the rest of the day, the group chat stayed eerily quiet. No one knew what to say. Even Jessica, usually a constant stream of memes and self-praise, was silent. I poured myself another cup of coffee and sat by the window, watching the pale winter sun slide behind the trees. Mom had gone home hours earlier, promising to call if she heard anything. The quiet felt strange, not empty, just peaceful. By 6:00 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Another message. This one not from family, but from Ethan. Ethan, your sister called me, said she's pregnant. My heart stopped for a second. Pregnant? I didn't reply. He sent another text. Don't know if it's true. She sounded panicked. Said she might come talk to you. I locked my phone and set it down slowly. Outside, snow began to fall. Soft, steady, quiet. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel dread. Just certainty. They would come, and this time I'd be ready. It was the next afternoon when the headlights finally appeared in my driveway. 2 silhouettes in black. Dad's truck. Jessica in the passenger seat. They were early. They were always early when they wanted to control the story. I saw them through the window and quietly told Mom, who was sitting on the couch, "They're here." She had insisted on staying, said she wanted to be a witness this time. Her voice had trembled a little when she said it. "Do you want me to leave?" she asked now. "No," I said. "Stay." Upstairs, Leo was gaming with his headphones on, blissfully unaware. I envied him for that, for the safety of a world where pressing pause actually works. The knock came sharp and rehearsed. I opened the door before they could try again. Jessica clutched a gift bag, her eyes rimmed red in that way I recognized too well. Tears rehearsed for sympathy. "Julia," she said softly, like we were starting a scene in a play. "Can we come in?" I stepped aside without a word. The air shifted when they crossed the threshold, colder somehow, despite the heating. Dad's cologne hit me first, then his heavy silence, the kind that always followed his mistakes. Mom stayed seated, hands folded in her lap. She didn't greet them, just watched. Jessica placed the bag on the table, voice trembling. "We just wanted to say, we're sorry." I looked inside the bag. A cheap knockoff gold watch, imitation leather band, the kind sold at gas stations. It was supposed to be a gesture, a mirror of the gift I'd planned for him. I lifted it out, looked at the crooked engraving on the back, "World's Best Dad." It was almost funny. I set it back in the bag and slid it across the table toward her. "No need," I said. "You already have one." Jessica blinked. "What do you mean?" "You already have the title. You've both been performing it for years." Dad's jaw tightened. "Julia, enough." "No," Mom cut in sharply. It startled even him. "She's not wrong." The silence that followed was heavier than anything I'd ever felt in that house. Then, before Dad could reply, there was another knock at the door. I frowned and went to open it. Aunt Linda stood there, her coat still dusted with snow, Nina right behind her. I hadn't called them, but the timing, it was perfect. "We're not doing this performance," Aunt Linda said firmly as she stepped inside, eyes flicking toward Jessica and Dad. "You don't get to play humble after what you did." Dad's face went pale. "Linda, this isn't your business." "It became my business," she said, "the moment you humiliated your daughter in front of the whole family group chat." Jessica looked down, trembling. Whether from guilt or fear, I couldn't tell. And then Linda said something that cracked the whole room open. "You're pregnant, aren't you?" The words hit like a stone dropped in still water. Jessica's head snapped up, eyes wide. "What? How?" Nina looked at her aunt. "You said she might—" Jessica's lips pressed together, trembling. Then she whispered, "I didn't want it to come out like this." No one moved. Mom's hand slowly rose to her mouth. "Oh, Jessica." Dad muttered, "That's enough." But I wasn't shocked. I was just still. The puzzle pieces rearranged themselves in my head. The sudden guilt, the timing, the desperate tone in her messages. Of course, she hadn't come for forgiveness. She'd come for security. Dad's voice broke through. "She didn't want to tell anyone yet. We were trying to figure things out." "Figure things out?" Aunt Linda snapped. "You mean how to make Julia pay for it?" Jessica started to cry. Real tears this time, maybe. "You don't understand. I just needed help." "You always need help," I said quietly, "and you always come to me for it." Her chin lifted, eyes flashing. "You're my sister. That's what family does." "No," I said. "That's what I did. You and Dad both. And when I stopped, you called it betrayal." The room went silent again except for the faint hum of the fridge. Jessica wiped her tears. "I was scared, Julia. I still am." I looked at her for a long moment. Maybe once, that line would have broken me. Maybe I'd have reached for my wallet and said, "It's okay, we'll figure it out." But not this time. "I believe you," I said softly. "You are scared, but being scared doesn't mean you get to keep taking." Her tears slowed. The silence that followed wasn't full of tension anymore. It was full of truth. Then Dad did something I didn't expect. He sank to one knee, right there in the middle of my living room. "Julia," he said, voice low. "I'm sorry." Mom gasped softly. He went on, "I know I failed you. I thought providing for you when you were younger was enough. I didn't realize how much you were still giving back, how much we took for granted." It was the first honest thing I'd heard from him in years. And for a flicker of a second, I believed it. Not because he was suddenly a new man, but because he had no other choice. His reputation, his image, they were already crumbling. All that was left was truth. Jessica stepped closer. "I'm sorry too," she whispered. "I was stupid. I didn't mean to hurt you." I looked at her, the girl who used to braid my hair, who used to borrow my clothes, who became the woman who laughed at my expense in a family chat. "I forgive you," I said finally. But forgiveness doesn't mean access. You don't get to walk back into my life with the same rules. The account's closed, Jessica, not out of hate, out of self-respect. She nodded, eyes wet. Dad stood, silent, unsure of where to look. Aunt Linda folded her arms. Good. Then that's settled. Jessica reached for the gift bag, but I stopped her. Leave it, I said. It's not real, just like your apologies used to be. Her face crumpled, and for a moment I thought she'd fight back. But she didn't. She turned, slipped her coat on, and walked out without another word. Dad followed, slower, older somehow. When the door closed behind them, the room felt lighter. Mom exhaled shakily. I didn't think he'd actually say sorry. Neither did I said. Aunt Linda smiled faintly. Well, that was overdue by about 20 years. We laughed, small, tired, but real. As the laughter faded, I walked to the window. Jessica and Dad were standing by the truck, arguing in the cold. Their silhouettes were dark against the snow. Mom joined me. Do you feel better? Not better, I said. Just finished. Aunt Linda nodded. Finished is good. We watched the truck pull away, its taillights vanishing into the white. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like chasing them. Later that night, I tucked Leo into bed. He looked up sleepily. Mom, are we still going to the store tomorrow? You said we'd look at the new console. I smiled. We are. It's already waiting. Because what they didn't know, what none of them ever thought to ask, was that I'd already used the money from the car and the watch to buy something else, something that mattered. A Christmas just for us. No guilt, no conditions, just peace. The next few days felt like standing in the calm after a storm. Not peace exactly, more like silence with edges. Dad hadn't called. Jessica hadn't messaged, but Mom texted each morning to check in. How are you feeling today? And every day, I replied the same way, lighter. It wasn't entirely true, I wasn't light yet, but the air in my house finally felt breathable. Leo was in the living room, building a Lego tower that kept leaning left. It's not fair, he muttered, pressing bricks together. Every time I fix it, it falls again. You're learning about foundations, I said, smiling faintly. If the base isn't strong, the rest can't stand. He looked at me curiously. Like people? Exactly like people. I watched him for a long moment and thought about how much I'd spent trying to be the foundation for everyone else. For Dad, for Jessica, even for Ethan once. I'd held everyone's weight until I cracked. Now I was rebuilding, brick by brick, but for us this time. That afternoon, I listed the Toyota for sale. Within hours, a buyer messaged me, offering cash and pickup the next day. I stared at the screen for a while before typing, deal. It was strange how final it felt. That car was supposed to be my truce, my offering, my proof that I could love enough to earn a seat at the table again. Now it was my freedom paper. At sunset, Mom called again. Her voice was gentler than usual. Jessica's been quiet, she said. Too quiet. She's processing, I said flatly. She's scared, Mom whispered. About the baby, about everything. I closed my eyes. She made choices, Mom. I can't keep cleaning up her consequences. I'm not asking you to, Mom said softly. I'm just telling you so you're not blindsided. I never am anymore, I said. But later, when I turned off the kitchen light, I couldn't shake the feeling that something unfinished was hanging in the air. The next day, snow fell in heavy sheets. The man buying the car came early. I watched from the window as the silver Corolla pulled out of my driveway, the red bow still sitting in the back seat. Useless now. It was gone, and with it, a version of me I didn't need anymore. I made cocoa for Leo and myself, sat by the window, and finally opened my laptop to check messages. There were dozens, from relatives, from coworkers, even from old friends who'd seen the family drama spill onto Facebook through whispers. Most were supportive. A few were backhanded. One said, "Family's complicated. Maybe you shouldn't have gone public." I smiled at that because they didn't understand. I hadn't gone public. I'd just stopped being silent. That night, just as I was turning off the lights, headlights swept across the living room again. For a second, my stomach dropped. I peered through the blinds. Jessica's car. I didn't move, I just watched. The engine idled, then turned off. The door opened. She stood there for a moment in the snow, hugging a coat around herself, visibly shaking. I opened the door before she could knock. "Julia," she said, voice small. "Can I come in?" I hesitated, then stepped aside. 5 minutes. Her eyes were red, her cheeks raw from the cold. She looked nothing like the confident sister who used to walk into every room like she owned it. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. "Dad's not talking to me. He's ashamed, I think." Of you or of himself? I asked quietly. She flinched. Both, maybe. She sat at the table, clutching a crumpled envelope. I didn't mean to hurt you. I really didn't. I stayed standing. Then why laugh? I don't know, she said, her voice breaking. It was stupid. Habit. You've always been the serious one, the responsible one. And I was jealous. You were always in control, and I was always taken care of, I finished. She nodded miserably. Yeah. The silence stretched. Finally, she slid the envelope across the table. It's for you. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a letter. Handwritten, shaky, full of crossed out lines. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. She wrote about the pregnancy, about how terrified she was, about how she'd spent years competing with me for Dad's approval, even when I wasn't trying, how she'd believed that if she made me the problem, she could be the solution. Then she wrote, "You didn't deserve any of it. I just didn't know who else to be." I stared at the page until the words blurred. For the first time, I saw my sister not as the villain of my story, but as someone still trapped in the script Dad had written for both of us. When I looked up, Jessica's eyes were shining. "You don't have to forgive me," she whispered. "I just didn't want you to hear about the baby from someone else." Something in me softened. Not enough to open the door again, but enough to not slam it. "I hope you do better for your child than Dad did for us," I said quietly. "That's the only apology that matters now." She nodded. "I will." "Then that's all you need to say." We sat there for a moment longer, the kind of silence that isn't angry, just tired. Then she stood, pulled her coat tight, and walked to the door. Before she left, she turned back once. "You really sold the car?" "I did." "Good," she said softly. "You deserve something new." And then she was gone. Later that night, after Leo went to bed, I went through the old folder labeled Family. I pulled out every receipt, every bill, every proof of debt and obligation, and fed them one by one into the fireplace. The paper curled, turned gold, then black, then ash. By the time the last page disappeared, the house smelled faintly of smoke and cinnamon. I stood there, watching the flames die, and whispered to myself, no more buying my way home. Because the truth was, home wasn't something they could invite me to, or take away. Home was this: the sound of my son's steady breathing upstairs, the warmth of the fire, and a peace that didn't depend on anyone's permission. A week later, Christmas morning arrived quietly. No calls, no noise, no guilt. Just soft light creeping through the curtains and the sound of Leo's footsteps padding down the hall. "Mom," he whispered, peeking into my room. "Can we open them now?" I smiled. "Go ahead." He tore into the gifts under our small tree. New sneakers, a stack of books, and the gaming console he'd wanted for 2 years. His gasp was pure joy, the kind that doesn't ask for permission to exist. "Is it really for me?" he asked. "All yours," I said. He ran over and hugged me, tight and quick, like kids do when they're too happy to find the right words. "This is the best Christmas ever," he whispered. And maybe, for me, it was too, because for the first time, I wasn't waiting for an apology that would never come. Around noon, Mom dropped by with a casserole and a warm smile. "Just us girls today," she said, though her eyes darted to Leo, who grinned at her. She sat at the table and exhaled. "Your dad didn't go to church," she said quietly. "Couldn't face anyone. Jessica stayed home too." "Good," I said. "She's showing," Mom added. "Tiny, but you can tell. She hasn't said who the father is." I stirred my coffee. "It doesn't matter. She'll have to face herself eventually." Mom nodded. "I think she will. She's different. I can feel it." We didn't talk about the letter Jessica had left, but we both knew it was the first real bridge built between us in years. Fragile, uncertain, but made of something more honest than guilt. That evening, Aunt Linda called. "Small dinner tomorrow night," she said. "Just me, Nina, and you. No drama, no apologies, just food and peace." I hesitated, then said yes. The next day I showed up with dessert. Not store-bought this time, but my own homemade pie. When Linda saw it, she smiled. "Looks perfect," she said. "It's the same one I brought 2 Thanksgivings ago," I said quietly. "Oh," she said, remembering. "The one they made fun of?" I nodded. "This time it's just pie." We laughed, and for once that laughter didn't hide anything. Dinner was simple but warm. No one whispered, no one compared. Nina asked Leo about his game, and Mom told stories that didn't end with sighs. And when I helped wash dishes afterward, I realized I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. The peace wasn't borrowed. It was earned. 3 days later, an envelope arrived in the mail. My name on it. Familiar handwriting. Jessica. Inside, a single page. "Dear Julia, I know you won't answer. That's okay. I just wanted to say thank you. Not for money or help, but for finally saying no. It forced me to grow up. The baby's due in July. I'm scared, but I'm ready. You were right. I was living on your strength. Now I have to build my own. Love, Jessica. I sat at the table, the paper trembling between my fingers. For a long time, I didn't move. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in the drawer with the Christmas cards. The first thing from my sister I didn't want to throw away. Mom called that night. Did you get it? I did. What will you do? I looked toward Leo's room, where he was laughing at something on his console, the sound echoing down the hallway like a heartbeat. Nothing, I said. Sometimes peace isn't a conversation, it's a choice. On New Year's Eve, the snow fell again. The house was quiet, golden from the tree lights I hadn't taken down yet. I sat on the couch with a blanket, watching Leo build another bridge out of popsicle sticks this time. Think it'll hold? He asked. Only one way to find out, I said. He placed a toy car on top. The bridge wobbled, then steadied. It works, he said proudly. I smiled. Of course it does. He looked up at me, eyes shining. You're really happy, aren't you, Mom? I nodded. Yeah, kiddo, I really am. He grinned. Good, 'cause you deserve it. And just like that, the world felt right again. Simple, honest, whole. Because this Christmas, I hadn't bought forgiveness. I hadn't fixed anyone. I'd just chosen peace and built a foundation strong enough for both of us. The fire crackled, the snow fell, and the quiet wasn't empty anymore. It was full. Full of love I didn't have to earn. Full of laughter that didn't cost me anything. Full of the sound of my son's voice saying, Happy New Year, Mom. And that, finally, was enough.